Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. Hello and welcome to Out with Dan. Today I'm so excited to be talking with Farhad Dadyburjor about his book, The Other Man. There it is. Welcome, Farhad.
Thank you, Dad. I'm so excited that we can finally chat, even if it's through a screen, but in person somehow.
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Your book was a highlight of my reading last year.
That's great. Yeah.
I learned things that I felt like I met people that I didn't know before, but the similarities of the situations were very familiar. So I just enjoyed it. Was there one particular thing that got you to go down this road for these characters?
Well, honestly, Dan, when I met my agent and I said, this is the book that I want to write, it was the very bare bones of it was two men from different parts of the world, different ethnicities, different ages, bound by one thing, which is love. And that's all I told her. And she said, just go for it. It sounds great. And that's really the starting point of this book. Everything else, frankly, just came in as I went along. The parents, the ex-lover, all the other issues. Of course, I knew that it would be a gay book and it would deal with, coming out and issues like that. But what exactly, and all of that sort of just fell into place as I went along. Even the dog Fubu was, something that came along because I love dogs, frankly. I'm not a cat person. I'm a dog person. So, and we had a lot of discussions about this, with my agent, and she'd say and she would tell me, she said, I know a lot of gay men in New York who have a lot of cats. And I'm like, I know a lot of gay men who have a lot of dogs. I don't like cats. Yeah. So there'd be a little bit of a tug of war on that, cat or dog, But
dog.
I was like, dog lover. Yeah. So that's how it really came about. And, the nice thing really, because I've written a book earlier, but I didn't have an agent at that time. The nice thing with writing this book was I had somebody to bounce off ideas on. You need that, as an author, you're pretty much stuck in your head and it's just about your thoughts. And sometimes they need fleshing out. Sometimes they need sort of like airing out, and so that was really great. So we'd have lots of discussions, especially on Disha, the girl that he's set to marry in the book. Am I getting some of her characteristics right? Because it's not my world. Like, I am gay and I got all the gay aspects bang on. But when it came to the slightly more heterosexual part of it, I had to see that fell into place as well, So there were lots of chats back and forth and stuff like that, which was great. And that's really, honestly, how this book came about. And another aspect, I'll tell you very quickly, Dan, was we both wanted it to be a happy love story, I was tired of reading books, gay novels, which just sort of were catastrophic emotionally, You're left feeling like, this heap of like unhappiness by the end of it. Really well written, brilliantly written. But I don't know why. For years, it was just unhappy stuff. I really don't know why. I've never figured that out.
One thing about romance is you do want a happy ending. I mean, that's the whole reason why it's romance. There are ways that we get to the end of a book or a romance book, whether it is through something horrific happening and the characters come back together. But it's always nice to see it when the characters are already loving people and they run, you've got to have a little conflict in there. But yet at the same time, these are characters that we could love and we could root for and be excited about. And that was something that I really liked.
Tell me.
Sorry, your main character, Vid, is a little older. He's not 18, he's not 16 or 25. He's a little older, which also speaks to readers, different ages, because we see that it isn't all new romance doesn't have to be in your 20s.
Exactly. And that really came from my angle, from my side, really, because I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't be able to write a 20-year-old, what 20, because it's a totally different world today, right? I mean, there's so many different things today. So that aging and that whole aspect really came naturally to me. And I said it has to be. And also generally there is always that older man, younger guy dynamic, whether in books or reality. You know what I mean? There is always that thing of the salt and pepper hair.
I've heard of that.
I'm sure you have, Dad. And the other thing is, in India, we've really been brought up with the whole idea that you really love your family. And I wanted it to be that however difficult things might be with the parents, at the end of the day, even those relationships are loving and nurturing, and they have discussions to sort them out. Because that is a big part of India. Your family, like your family makes it for you, really, in a certain sense. So that was really important to bring in, and so that's where you root for them to work things out or understand, and I mean, honestly, like coming out is universal, right? I mean, it's the same thing around the world.
Yes.
But the peculiar aspect out here in India is about arranged marriages, which a lot of gay men get pushed into. Yeah, tell me.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that there again, so you did honor the mom and dad. Dolly and Prem were just adorable, and I will go on and tell you that my friends who read it would assume that I'm Dolly because, I'm with Dolly. It's my way or the highway. Oh, yes.
I love Dolly. She was my favorite character to write, frankly.
She was so fun. And look, she hits a lot of stereotypes, and that's okay. But the love she has for both her son and the respect she has for her ex-husband is wonderful, because when there is a split, it's so easy to harbor hatred and to be very angry.
Bitter,
and it's not necessarily that Dolly's the happiest person, but she is happy. But you put the two of them in situations, the mom and dad, that turned out to be loving and a blessing for their son.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's so well put, Dan, and that's true. I mean, for all said and done, Dolly she's got a heart of gold.
Yes.
And she is that little showy, and she likes her little kitty clubs and all of that stuff. But that is very typical out here. A lot of Indian women, and I'm sure even internationally, women are part of that whole show and stuff like that, dressing well and, where you stay and all of that stuff. But she really...
It isn't only Indian women, just so we're clear.
Okay, we get that out of the way. Cancel that statement. Yeah. So, I mean, and I loved writing her. In fact, at times, it was difficult because I would somehow take her over the top, and then I had to bring her down one notch lower, because she is the sort of person, who could go, you could go one step even higher, sort of. But yeah, I mean, and honestly, Dan, she sort of binds the whole novel together. She binds the son, she binds the wife to be, or the wife he's supposed to marry. And she pretty much is the central figure for Wade, and that's why it was really to keep her happy that he says, yes, I'll get married, thinking I'll get out of it some way or the other, I'll say something. And then he just couldn't, she just had him at this one, she just got him caught with this one. And she said, no, I found the woman and you're going to go for it. And, and honestly, that is for a lot of Indian men. And I'm speaking from Indian, and because I'm an Indian guy, but I'm sure even for guys around the world, I mean, the mother is a very central figure. Yes. Many gay men, the mother is a very strong figure in the family often. And I wanted to bring out that aspect that he was willing to, sacrifice his own happiness in some sense for this, which is something that is pretty much prevalent out here, where you grew up with the idea that, you sort of bow down to your parents' wishes, come what may, till he realizes that he's found the love of his life, and then it's like a quicksand situation, right? Who do I go against,
Well, and it's another loving aspect was Disha. So here comes into Veed's life someone who is so perfect, who is honestly the person, the friend all of us would really benefit from having, and someone who is supportive. And I love that character because there's so much about, it's almost as if she's his soulmate in a lot of ways because she loves and honors her friend. And I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's so true. And, even he feels that. And that's why he hates the fact that he has to lie to her. He just wishes that, but we've been in those situations, right? With friends. Like,
yes.
I mean, when I hadn't come out and a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, was trying to sort of have that discussion with me. And this was in the 90s when it was really pretty tough to talk about gay subjects, really. There was no discussion. And she just asked me, she said, "Are you a little bit like George Michael?" And I said, "I'm completely like George Michael," and so, so that's how people have discussions, and that's how you break the ice sometimes, especially when you're closeted, you haven't come out and things like that. But in Disha's case, she was willing to go and, go that step and say, "I support you irrespective," and she really, and the amazing thing was that she also knew she was just getting married to make her parents happy, which shows that it's both sides, really. It's not just men who do it, it's women too, who just say,
Precisely.
You know what, we're going to go for it and, see how that turns out. But of course, it all turns out very different.
It does.
Thankfully.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes, thankfully. Or else I'd have thrown the book aside and not wanted to talk to you at all.
No more, Dolly.
No, you're cut off. So I also felt like Mumbai was a character in and of itself. I will tell you that I just ate up. I could feel the heat. I could smell the city. The food, of course, I particularly like Indian food. So for me, the different types of Indian food, some I knew, some I did not know. But I also felt like really the city itself was another character.
Yeah. And, again, Dan, this is something that I've noticed with a lot of books that are published internationally about India or Bombay or Mumbai, as it's known as, which always sort of focus on either the poverty aspect or sort of the more exotic aspect, and I was just tired of that. I was like, Mumbai is a throbbing city. It's a 24/7 city. It's got film stars staying here. It's got the who's who. It's got some of the richest men in the world. So it's a really throbbing 24/7 city. And I was like, why don't writers show that aspect of the city? Why do they always focus on, the dowdier side? And I've never understood that, why that all, maybe it works in some cases, but I was like, I don't want to do that. This is how I see my city, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to honor it in this way, to just show every aspect of it in a glitzy aspect, but there is a lot of glitz to it. There is a lot of glamour to it. There is a lot of beauty. Yeah.
Yes, there has to be. And I agree with you. I find that sometimes when an author chooses a particular city, especially one I've been to, then of course I concentrate to see whether they're honoring the city or dishonoring the city, or perhaps the city doesn't matter. Perhaps it's just a location that they chose. But you took a city and you gave it a love story. And you gave the characters a love story with loving where they are in life.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really important aspect. A lot of the places in the book are actually in existence.
Okay.
So Toto's, the garage pub, does really exist. It is a garage pub. It is exactly like I've described it. I mean, of course, places like Bandra and the Gateway of India and the Taj Hotel and all of that those were actual figures, because I wanted the city to come alive with the book. It couldn't just be a nameless hotel, or it just couldn't be just, walking down some street. I wanted to give it that character. Like, the city had to have its character too, that piece in it.
I like that a lot.
Thank you.
I loved the dad. He was in some ways similar to my dad. Not the wealth part, but the solidness of him. He wasn't a character. He was sort of the opposite of Dolly in a lot of ways, in the fact that he wasn't overly talkative, but you felt he was so solid. And I did appreciate that, because it's coming out stories, or stories where a romance story and has family involvement. You never really know exactly how it is. Some parents are supportive, some parents are not. Unfortunately, we know too many people who had unsupportive parents. And it is good to read stories like that, but it's also great to read a story where there's positivity in a family. Family may want something, and at least with these parents, they wanted something positive. And it wasn't only, well, Dolly wanted a little bit of it for herself, but I can understand her. I've already told you, she and I are like, we're simpatico.
I mean, they both wanted the best for their son, in their eyes, what they felt was the best. And that's how they saw it. And in fact, the father is far more progressive, actually. And I hinted at it. I didn't get into it too much, but I said that he'd gone to Oxford in the 60s. And I just gave a hint that maybe he had seen or met or, had that, because he was pretty forward, actually, engaging somewhere that his son might be gay, but he possibly didn't want to accept it or talk about it. But I think he got it, unlike Dolly, who didn't, who was just like, sort of like, it took her a while. But he got it. And yes, he is that solid figure. He is the one who sort of grounds the family, who keeps them together. And he's built that empire. And, the reason I put the character in a business situation like this, a big billionaire business situation like this, is because a lot of people think that, if you're rich, it's easier to come out. And that's not true at all.
No, I think sometimes it's harder.
Exactly, because you have so many more trappings, and just like he did in the business world, it's really difficult to come out, because especially if you're the boss's son, and I wanted that to be an important aspect, because it's much easier in the arts or in certain fields. It is much easier,
Yes.
But some business, some professions, it is tougher. And that's why I put him in that, where it's his father's business. So, he's sort of like, everyone's looking up to him in some sense. And that weighs on him even more, that, how am I going to, go through that whole thing? And he knew that, I mean, in the business world, it is very easy to get sort of, excommunicated in some sense, or stuff like that. I mean, it's changing, right? I mean, corporates are becoming more LGBT friendly, but in small spaces,
Yes, they are. Fortunately, a lot of corporations are becoming. Unfortunately, a lot of corporations here in the US, June is typically Gay Pride Month. So, a lot of corporations come out with all this LGBTQ plus items. And then on July 1st, it all goes away. I will not mention the department store, but I was at one yesterday, and they had a lot of gay pride paraphernalia, glasses, cups, mugs, t-shirts, dresses, all kinds of stuff. And I looked at, I think, 4 items that didn't have a price tag. Everywhere else in the store, everything had a definite price tag. And I'm like, so are you asking, not that it would bother me, but are you asking only the gay people to take a coffee mug and ask someone how much it costs, when every other coffee mug in the entire store had a price tag on it? I'm like, why is that? Now, I think it was probably just because it was yesterday and I happened to notice it. They had a great display and I was very proud of them, but we still have a ways to go.
Yeah. And, Dan, I mean, you all are far ahead still. I feel here we only got our freedom for same-sex relationships 3 years ago, which has been a catalyst in some sense for change. But it's the same thing. You see a lot of tokenism still. You see corporations like this who say we're very LGBT friendly, but then when you ask them what are their policies, they don't necessarily have any policies. Or it is just I know people, who sort of know that it's politically correct today to be LGBT friendly.
Yes.
So they're much more sort of like on your face, they'll be just more, cool about it, but they're not really, they don't have an understanding of what it's about or what you go through, or, the intricacies really, the difficulties, the sadness, the unhappiness, the things you need to deal with, rather than just, all the other stuff that comes out on top of it. So yeah, it's the same thing. There is a lot of tokenism, in the fashion world. There's a lot of tokenism.
Yes,
because inclusivity is this big buzzword now, right? I mean, around the world, everybody wants to be inclusive. Suddenly, suddenly everybody.
Well, I do see commercials here where I have seen visual, whether they were gay, straight, whatever, wherever they were on the spectrum. I see a lot of inclusivity in commercials, which is a very good thing, at least in my estimation, because we're moving the ball forward. Some of those are done for shock value, and I understand that. But when I came out in the 80s, a lot of us who came out, we did it with shock value because we knew we might have to navigate a path on our own. So we were like, you will be my friend. I'm gay, blah, blah, blah. It worked for some people. It backfired for others. So I'm glad to see that at least in advertising, we're pushing the boundary. Because what was it, Section 377?
Yeah,
and so in knowing I was going to chat with you, I was thinking, okay, so we've had gay marriage here in the US, or marriage equality, for a while, but of the 50 states here in the US, probably half of them still have some type of law that criminalizes gay people. So in the Supreme Court, we've had this sweeping judgment. I don't know the right word. We've had this proclamation that, okay, marriage equality exists. But then, if you get happy with a friend of yours in Indiana, you could still be arrested, technically.
Yeah.
So while we're moving in the right direction, I think the whole world still has a ways to go.
Yeah. I mean, here we still don't have marriage equality. I mean, that is the next step. That is the next fight that's there. But, interestingly, I just recently did an interview with two couples, one lesbian couple and one gay couple who've been seeing each other for a long time. And one of them had gotten engaged. And I asked them this, I said, because there have been a lot of petitions in the court about, the right for marriage, for same-sex couples. And I said, how important is that for you? And they were like, we're not going to wait around for this piece of paper anymore. Yeah. We're going to do it as cementing our love, irrespective if it comes through, that's great. If it doesn't, we're not waiting. I mean, we've been denied for so long. Why should we wait any longer? And I thought that was interesting because we talk about this a lot and we say that it's, we really want this to come through. And it's great if it comes through. But I don't think couples are waiting around for that. They're just going ahead. I mean, if you're in love with somebody, just celebrate it and, do what you want to do with that.
Absolutely. And I think it is important. If we're going to be the master of our destination as a human being, we cannot wait for someone else to say yes or no. We must move the ball forward on our own terms.
True, definitely. I mean, you have to do that. And, I think even when 377 was around, it wasn't that, gay men were not meeting up or stuff like that. There weren't parties, there were. But it was just that this one absurd, act that was there from the British time. It came into force when the British ruled India. They left India a long time ago, but this was never removed. Section 377 was never removed. And it was only since a couple of years when a lot of gay activists started, challenging it in court. And then sort of people woke up to that fact. But it's been such a catalyst for change in a lot of ways, because it just puts everybody on the same pedestal now, So, I mean, that. Yeah, I mean, it's and, the amazing thing, Dan, I have to tell you, is that when I wrote this book, I finished it, sent it to my agent. It was completely done. 377 was still in existence.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so I'd sent it. And then when it came through in September, the date came through, one of the first few people I called was my agent. And I said, you know what, this is what's happened. And it's a whole new India now. And there's going to be such a big change that's going to come about this. And we have to include it in the book. We have to. And so we changed things. We amplified it. We made it much more important. And we changed the end to accommodate it and things like that. But that was so important because, I would have hated for this book to have come out without that being part of it. That's such an important aspect.
And it was, and you dealt with it so lovingly and kindly. It is, You know, these types of rules, these types of legislation, whether they're new or old or whatever, that are oppressive, when they get lifted, we must celebrate that because it's so
True.
important. It's so
Yeah.
important. So, are these characters going to come around again in another book?
I don't know, Dad. I mean, honestly, I've just not given it too much thought. I would love to. I would love to, I feel that there is space to do, one more book with these characters, but I really don't know. I need to frankly sit down and, figure things out and, look at the technicalities of it. But yeah, I mean, there is space for something more, but let's see.
I'm cheering for Dolly. She gets her own book.
Exactly. I really feel that, I feel there's so much more that you can do with Dolly. There's so much more. And she really is the most fun character for me, and that's so important when you're writing. You want somebody who's fun, who you can just sort of roll with, in a certain sense.
And and it's nice because she can be as campy as she wants, and as you say, if you can always rein her in at a later point. Are you working on something now? Do you have something in the works?
No, actually, no, not at all. Because what happened with my first book, Dan, was that I was so sort of like walking on eggshells when it came out. And I was so, concerned with this review or this what's written or having the event. And just basically, that once a couple of months were finished and then sort of the book moves on, I realized that I hadn't enjoyed it at all. Like I was just so taken up with that whole. So I said, with this book, I'm just going to sit back and enjoy every little bit of it. Good. I'm not going to get hassled. Yeah. And you develop a little bit more of a thick skin, not that much, but a little bit more to anybody who has a problem with it. You just learn to just say, okay, what, opinions are opinions. But I just wanted to enjoy it. I was just like, I'm just going to enjoy every bit and then later take a call on, what I feel like, because it came out only in October, so it's not even been a year since then. So give it some time.
It's delicious. It really is, Farhad. I have enjoyed it greatly. So do you have a website or social media that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. I'm always on Instagram. So that's the best, which is at the rate of Farhad J D. It's the best way to reach me. And I've got a lot of people actually who have actually sent in messages, A lot of gay men reached out to me. Somebody said, I hope this book saves even one life, and that would mean everything, which I thought was really touching. Yeah.
That is nice.
Yeah. And somebody said, I cried at the end of the book and all sorts of stuff. So Instagram is the best, way to reach me. Or, of course, I'm on Facebook also, which you can just find with my name. And I'm on Twitter, but Instagram is really the best for me. That's the best way to reach me.
Wonderful. I have had such a wonderful time chatting with you. And once again, the book is The Other Man. It is so wonderful. And I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me and chat.
Thank you, Dan. This was a fantastic chat, and I loved every minute. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Me too. Thank you for joining us with Out with Dan, and see you soon. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at outwithdan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.